I told you to send any questions you have about body language to bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and you send them, and I'm going to answer them. Here's the first one. There are so many books and videos about body language. How can I bring structure into my learning so that I have a real learning effect and not just from book to book or video to video and everything remains superficial? So what you want to do is practice. All these things you read and all these videos you watch and all that, before you start watching videos, though, make sure you're getting information from a valid source. You can't just, some person is going, I'm a body language expert, research them, make sure they're who they say they are so you don't get bad information. Number one, that is so important, okay? Do a little look into them. Make sure they're not full of it, because some people are just Googling stuff and puking it out and going, oh, this is a fact. And most of the stuff you learn on Google isn't true. Most of that stuff is invalid because it's incomplete or it's wrong or incorrect. So you got to practice. So go out into the world once you've read a book or while you're reading a book and you learn about one little thing of body language. Say you look for contempt. You know, contempt is that thing where your one lip comes up like that. And they do that. Look for contempt all day. Just do that for 2 or 3 days. Just look for that. That's all. Then start noticing things like illustrators. When people are illustrating and they're making their points, it's when your brain emphasizes specific words or phrases, like I did just then, specific words or phrases. Watch for those. Spend a week doing that. Pick 2 or 3 things and watch them every week. Watch for adapters, little things that tell us that built up stress and tension needs to be let go. They're trying to get rid of it. That could be anything from doing this with their hand to pulling on their ear, crossing their arms and squeezing, not just crossing your arms, because we know crossing your arms most of the time means absolutely nothing in context with what's happening. A lot of times people do that because they're more comfortable. So go out and practice. If you're reading that much, you're learning that much, that's great. Keep doing that. Keep it up. But go out and practice. It's important that you do that. So keep all that in mind. Can 2 facial expressions show up simultaneously? They sure can, and they quite often do. For example, I remember one time when I was in high school, my buddies and I would hang around behind this church called Woodland Church in Oak Ridge. And on Friday and Saturday nights where we'd hang around, we weren't like out fighting people and doing, all that. We just hang around, talking, doing guy stuff, right? So the guys from Clinton, the next town over, that was our rival, Clinton. And I know a lot of people that were our rivals back then. And I like them all. And they like Oak Ridge people. Oak Ridge people like it. I think it's when you're a kid is when you have that big rivalry, because when you grow up, nobody cares. So anyway, but back when we were in high school, that was our rival. Was Clinton. And one night at Woodland Church, we were in the parking lot back there, and this carload of guys from Clinton showed up, right? So they all got out, and actually there's a couple of people that started fighting with a couple of them, and I was sitting on the hood of my car, being all cool and stuff. And as I was saying, I saw this guy coming toward me, and he had disgust on his face, like this. It's where your nose wrinkles, and you're like that. And he had disgust. But his eyes were a little wide, and I could see the whites of his eyes. So we're looking at anger and disgust there. So I was just focusing on disgust because I know everything at that age. When you're in high school, you're so dang smart. And this guy got closer, and I was sitting there. And so I figured I would just talk to him and say, hey, man, talk him down. And no, he hit me so hard. I just tanked right on the hood of my car. I just fell right back on that. And I think he hurt his hand, actually. And then he ran after that because I think he expected me to block it or fight back or something. I think it scared him. He hit me so hard. Probably what's wrong with me today. But yeah, you can have 2. That's a good example of 2 expressions at once and just focusing on the biggest one of the 2. But you can have plenty of times, and it's a blend of expressions usually. You can see happiness and sadness at the same time. You see a blend of that. Sometimes it'll be more of one than the other. You can, like I said before, you see disgust and anger at the same time. You can see contempt and anger a lot of times at the same time. I've seen that a lot too from my work. And then you can see, there's different expressions can blend with other expressions. We talk about it on the behavior panel sometimes when we see that on someone that's on the stand, that's in court and they're being questioned. Or in an interrogation. We'll see it sometimes, but usually those videos aren't very good. They're usually not very clear. but we do see it in there sometimes as well. So yes, that can happen, and it happens quite often. So start looking for that, and talking to the person who was wondering about what can I do to help, learn stuff. Look for that. Start focusing on expressions one week. It's taking one thing at a time. You got plenty of time. All right. Does body language show up when someone is sleeping? Well, that's a good question too. Sometimes, no, they're just laying there asleep. I mean, you can't tell a whole lot about that. There are those theories, the way people lay with their hands behind their back, they're making the cobra and all that when they're laying back like that, and different things. But I wouldn't put much into that. However, I did have a roommate once who was a sleepwalker, and the first time I saw it, scared the living shit out of me. I didn't know what was going on because I thought he lost his mind. Right. So I'm in my bed, and we didn't have a whole lot of money. So we had an apartment, had 2 rooms. And my room was the front room where you come in, and there was a single bed there, and we had a couch. And what we do is, with some of my roommates at the time, I had several, and one would come in from the studio, a recording studio, and if it was your turn to sleep and you got the couch, you had to wake somebody up and say, "Look, man, I got to go to sleep. It's my time for the couch, or it's my time for the bed." And we were just like, it was crazy. But we're in, Boston. We're in, college at the time, out of college by that time, and didn't have any money. Anyway, so this one guy that stayed with us for a while, he sleepwalked. How do you say it? Sleptwalked? I'm going to go sleep as a sleepwalker. And nobody else was there, just me and this guy. And he was in the back room because there was a bed back there and there's a couch back there too. So I heard him get up. Something woke me up, and I was laying there, and here he came walking in the room. And the little kitchenette was right there too, because you have to pass the bathroom, come down this little hall. There was actually a hallway in this place. And it was at 24 Peterborough Street, right there in Boston. Right there, the Park Drive right there, because I used to have an apartment in Park Drive after Peterborough Street. And then it looks down on this thing. It's like this, it's called the Fins. I don't know why they call it that. It's like a bunch of weeds and stuff out by this, like a bunch of water there. There's like a little river thing right there, and they call it the Fins. I don't know why. And so this guy comes walking in because I'm watching him. I'm giving one of these, pretending I'm asleep, seeing what the hell he's doing. And I see him walk in, and he starts doing karate moves right there near the kitchenette. He starts doing these karate moves, and I was like, this guy's lost his damn mind. So then I was like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And he turned around, and he couldn't see me. He didn't see me. He just started doing more karate moves, right? I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" And finally he woke up, and he sort of got his head together. And it was like, "I think I'm asleep." I was like, "Wow, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life." I haven't seen it since then. I haven't seen anybody sleepwalk since then. It's my introduction to it, and hopefully my outro to it. Scared me to death. I didn't know what was going on. I don't know whatever happened to that guy. Crazy. It's weird. But yeah, so you can see body language when they're up walking around, but I don't think there's much to somebody laying there asleep. Speaking of sleep, I put together these videos. I think they've got 3 out now that are about body language and sleeping. So if you have a problem sleeping and you want to learn about body language, go watch one of those. I've been studying that stuff for a long time, off and on, but for the last 2 years, I've been focusing on how to get somebody to sleep by what they listen to. It's not using the binaural stuff and all that. It's just there's really calming music. But then in the background, I'm talking about body language and give specific things that are important. Sort of it's almost like a little course in body language, but you're sleeping during it. And you go, how can you take in information if you can't sleep? I thought that too. But when you sleep, that information is going in, and theoretically it sticks. And apparently it's working from all the feedback I'm getting. And you won't wake up going, wow, I know all about body language. But slowly but surely, that stuff, if you listen to it, I think it's 21 days is the usual time people listen to those things for it to start working and really stick in your mind. People learn languages that way, from what I understand. I don't think they wake up, speaking French or Spanish or German or Russian, but they have a better understanding of it, or it's more deeply seated in their subconscious. So when they learn about it, it pops out quicker because they've already heard it and they've already learned it. in other words. So check that out if you're into it. They're on this channel here as well. Is the body language in children the same with adults, or is there something I should pay attention to in particular? That's a great question too. Dang, these have all been good. So when you're dealing with a child's behavior and an adult's behavior, we know those are different, right? Because the adult has more experience. Their neurosystem is neurologically, they're on. That thing is fully developed. When you're a child, your brain isn't fully developed yet, but you still do have body language, or you still exhibit behaviors and body language that will tell you what's going on with them, what they might be thinking or experiencing. We've all seen children make the frowny face and all that and get mad. Those basic instincts or basic expressions that you have are part of those 7 facial expressions that you'll see universally. There are 7 of them. And I talk about them actually going back to the sleep thing. And I teach those, quote unquote, in those things every time. So check that out. Those things get deep-seated in you too. But those 7 expressions will show up, and you'll know what they are when you see them, because they're as a child, they're at the very basic level of being human. And the more experiences they have, the more they'll be able to relate to and start comparing them and go, I don't like that, or it hasn't happened yet, but I don't like that. And you'll see that on them. You'll see those expressions that tell you that. So a child's body language is much different than an adult's. However, there are things that as you they sort of cross over, because again, since the child isn't developed completely yet, they don't have the experience and knowledge of what's going on out in the world, and they haven't seen things or expressions and body language that they'll copy that will become a part of their mannerisms. Quite often you have you'll say that guy acts just like his dad. That's so weird. He talks and moves his hands just like his dad or whatever, because he probably grew up seeing that, how his dad did. His dad's probably his hero, and he's tried to do that as a kid, or naturally just kind of said, well, that's the way you do it. That's why I'm going to do that too. So I think that's a really important question, because it shows the differences, of course, in adult and child, but how those things develop, that'll put that idea in your head and how you can sort of think about that. I think that'll help a little bit. But yeah, there's a big difference, while at the same time, there's a lot of things that both of them do that are the same. Let's see, we go down to this one. I've been watching and listening to hours and hours of your content, but struggle to put it into practice. Is it possible that I may unconsciously have become better at reading people as an improved instinct or a gut instinct? Yeah, because you're learning all the time. You're learning all the time, especially if you're exposing yourself to information and sitting down. That's why I don't like getting all technical on these things and going deep into the neurological side or deep into the technical stuff. I can, and I do quite often. I've written a lot about that. I train all that. But here, we don't, who wants to know, you won't be able to remember. You will, after a while, be able to remember all those things, I'm sure. But to get the basics of what's really happening and what you see when you're out doing something, if you're not a cop or in the military or in law enforcement, things you're seeing, what does that mean? That's basically what we're looking at. So, or what we're talking about here. I try to break it down as simply as possible, so it doesn't sound like all, technical and clinical, because it's easier to absorb that way. That's my take on it anyway. You're exposed to behavior all the time. You're exposed to different situations with people. So you're learning all the time. And the more you're exposed to information like I'm giving you, and the behavior panel, and Joe Navarro and Paul Ekman, and Jesus and those guys, everybody that are valid body language experts, man, you just being exposed to that, then you'll see it out somewhere and go, oh, I know what that is. So even though you may not be writing stuff down and say, I need to pay attention to this, and it may feel old after a while. Once it starts feeling old, that's actually good, because you'll start seeing those things. They'll start popping out to you. And once you realize that's what you're seeing, and that you're seeing these behaviors that you've been learning about or hearing about, it's a whole new world. So warning, once that starts happening to you, you may go for a deep dive. You may never come out of it. You may never get out of it. I didn't. Started when I was a little kid. I've told that story on here. I never got out. I've been in for 50-something years, studying and learning about body language. So you're exposed to different things. So some things will stick and some things won't. Let me turn this phone off real quick. So some things will stick and some things won't. But the more you expose yourself to the information as you go out, the more natural it will feel like it comes to you, these things, and spotting behavior and understanding it, because you'll already be aware of it. And so your brain goes, oh, okay, I know what that is. I accept that. In other words, there's a lot of big terms that are a way to explain that, which we won't get into. So, yeah, that may be happening to you. You're probably learning, and you probably don't realize it. So don't get frustrated, because what you're feeling is good. That's good for you. That's a good place to be, because you've gathered a lot of information. It sounds like the same thing. A lot of it is because, in the world, there's 7 songs and 10 jokes, and that's all for each one of those. There's a different version of each one of them. In body language, you're dealing with stress. In body language, you're dealing with when there's no stress, and everything that happens in between there. Is that person comfortable, or are they uncomfortable? What are we looking at? And why? What's happening? Can I make them feel that way? Did I say something by accident that makes them feel that way? As I watch these two people, what is that person saying that made that person do that behavior? And why is he doing that behavior to her when she looks like she's already happy, but he still looks like he's trying to explain something, or whatever the situation is? So, yeah. Can someone become hyper aware of other people's body language when they live in a foreign country with a foreign language? Yes, that's a good question too. If you're in a foreign country, the body language is going to be different, because when you deal with body language, the first thing you've got to think about is this. Remember that everything in body language begins and is executed by the brain. Everything. So as you grow up, like we talked about a minute ago, your cultural input for your body language that you start to mimic and the way you start to act, it's going to be much different than other places, other countries. So if you grow up in one country and culture is like this, and you go to another one, that's why you always hear about culture shock, because it's so different. And for example, let's take the Middle East. Those people, when you meet them, they'll walk that close to you and walk right in, hey, what's going on? And all that. It's weird. They get so close. But for them, it's nothing. For them, it's normal. And when people start backing up and they start getting close, it's weird for them when there's that much space. Because you'll see them lean in real heavy when that happens. Not all the time, but quite often you will. Now, one thing I just got back from, not just now, but I got back recently from Zurich in Switzerland. And I'd never been there before, right? And the differences in behavior culturally there in America are unbelievable. But they're in a way, they're subtle. For me, it wasn't subtle, but I think anybody who just goes over there and shows up, something might not be wrong. They may feel a bit odd and they don't know why. Because in Switzerland, everybody's relaxed. I didn't see one person that was worried. I didn't see anybody that was all worked up or tense. I didn't see anybody that was mad. I didn't see anybody running. I didn't see anybody in a hurry. Nothing like that at all. Everybody just laid back over. I loved it. It was if I ever leave America, that's where I'm going. I want to move to Switzerland, man. This was awesome. Find me a little town and go there. It was wonderful. If you haven't been there, you should go. Go to Zurich, man. That's the only place I've been over there. It was wonderful. So check that out. They're so nice. Everybody over there is so nice. Even though English isn't their first language, they all speak English, and they're not, mean about it when you don't speak whatever language they're speaking, because there's several different languages they speak there. I believe German's the big one, and I don't speak German, so I had no way to communicate outside of English, and they'll all speak English over there. And so you're dealing with a country that's speaks, the people there speak more than one language, so they're not idiots, they're smart, and they're comfortable. Everybody was comfortable there. It's incredible. You'd absolutely love it. You got to go. You got to go. I can't wait to go back. Absolutely. Oh, and chocolate. If you're into chocolate, I'm a fat guy, so I know about chocolate. I know I like to eat it anyway. Man, they're famous for having the best chocolate in the world. Let me tell you something. They have the best chocolate in the world. If you go there, lean into it. They got shops. That's all there is. That's all there is. And they have professional, and they make a big deal about it too. It's like buying a watch or something. Speaking of the Swiss, they got a lot of watch stores as well. But man, these chocolate places, when you go in, and I think they're famous. I don't know, because I don't know that much about chocolate, to be honest with you. But you go in and they're like, it's like you're buying something high end, and you are, but they treat you like you are. You're just buying candy, basically. It's awesome. You should go. You should check it out. If you get a chance, go to Switzerland. It's wonderful. Okay. What does one eye going up instead of two mean? Well, when you have a facial expression that's asymmetric, that means it's not the same on one side like contempt as is on the other. Most people are under the impression that contempt is the only asymmetric facial expression. It's not. There are a bunch of them, especially when you do that. Things aren't the same on this side as they are on this side of your face. When that one goes up, and that usually indicates that person is has a question about something. They're not sure about it. They're like, they have a question about it, or see it as wrong. You kidding me? Or something is off with whatever the situation is. I use it when I'm trying to tell somebody I don't believe what they're saying, or I'm trying to understand what they're saying, but I'm not sure yet. It's not clear. So you have several different meanings, but it's mostly the one where you're like, I don't know, man, that kind of thing. So it's not a specific, or there is not a definitive answer for that, but that's the general idea. In other words, it's asymmetric eyebrows. So think about it like that. I won't get into all technical and all the neurological stuff on that. It's boring. How does body language play out in identical twins, identical or fraternal, or other multiple births? Well, like we were talking about earlier, and this is great because everything's sort of falling into a flow here. You have twins born at the same time. Let's say they're identical. Well, identical, fraternal, it really doesn't matter. They're pretty much, everybody has their own body language they do. They're going to have a lot of the same things they do because they focus on each other a lot. You've heard that twins have their own language and all that. A lot of times they do. Parents don't understand what they're talking about. My brother and I are a year and a half apart, but we didn't have our own language or anything, but we have a lot of the same mannerisms and we do a lot of the same things. We're completely different in what we do for a living and the things we're interested in. We're both interested in funny and that kind of thing. But outside of that, he's into making movies. I like watching them. I have no interest in making one. He's into developing TV shows. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Don't know anything about it, So as you grow up, you're experiencing the same things. You're taking the same rides in the stroller. People are coming down talking to you. You're getting fed at the same time. You're going to the same restaurants as you grow up, seeing everybody in, almost in real time at the same time, things happening. You're going to have the same exact same experiences. So your reactions will quite often be the same. However, you're still going to have things where as a twin, you will act exactly like that person, or you'll do the same things that person does, the same mannerisms. And at the same time, you'll do things that are a little different from each other. You've heard those stories. I think this is fascinating how you'll have twins that are separated at birth. And you find out they're both firemen. They both married a woman named Gladys, and they both, have the same kind of car, and they both play, tennis on Thursdays at 4, that kind of thing. Look into that. That's fascinating. How twins, even though they've been separated, they'll be doing the same things. And they interview some of these people too, and they look alike, but they're wearing the same clothes. It's bizarre. Check it out. You might like it. You might find it interesting. Is it possible to teach body language techniques to a person with Asperger's to help him or her navigate social situations better? Yes, it is. And I've done it before. And the thing that I've learned about autism and Asperger's is they're just on the inside, man, everything's the same. Just they're normal people. But they don't understand the social cues by when someone's angry or the tone of their voice. And they don't understand their tone of voice and how they are read, what they transmit to other people. The things you focus on about, I better not do that. I better set up like this. I'm gonna don't talk too loud. Don't say that; it might hurt their feelings. They don't have that. They didn't develop that way. So they can let it rip, man, whatever they're thinking. And it doesn't bother them because they don't know that it bothers you. Like you don't know when it bothers them, that their feelings get hurt. They're really sensitive. They're really sensitive. And they don't understand why people do that. They think people just don't like them. And people are put off by them because of obviously of their behavior, but they don't understand that the person that doesn't like the autistic person thinks the autistic person is being mean, or they just don't care, or they're arrogant. They're not at all. They're some of the sweetest people in the whole wide world. Just got to get to know them and understand what's happening. Once you approach it that way, you'll get it. You go, oh, I get it. Because when they say something and it sounds rude, I promise you they're not being rude. They're just telling you what they think, which is what we all want to do, Oof. So I've got in trouble for that a lot. But yeah, so you can explain things but it's analytical as you do it. You got to say, look, the reason this happens is because of this. Once they get a handle on that and they understand that, they may not be able to change completely, because after a while you just want to be yourself and they just want to be themselves, So some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. But in these social interactions where if you're a guy dealing with girls, you got to be careful. And if you're a girl dealing with guys, you got to be careful too. You can't just say what you think, or you got to be careful. So explaining that is fairly easy once you get into that groove of how that's done. But believe me, autistic people and people with Asperger's, they're from the front on back, man. They're normal. They're the sweetest people in the world. And they want to be friends with you. They want to hang with you. They want to do stuff. They want to be normal, and they don't know why they're not. So be patient. That's the key. Be patient and understand. Understand what's happening. Don't go, well, he's autistic. Tell somebody, look, here's what's happening. I know what's happening here. This cat's autistic, man. So he doesn't see things. And explain it to him. And they'll be like, oh, okay. Because everybody's interested in that. When you say, oh, I totally get it. And then they're interested in that. And that person becomes a person of interest, as Coach Burt would say. So you got to be patient with them. You'll get it. You get the handle of it. And yes, it can be, you can teach them body language and and how to approach other people. Is twiddling thumbs a self-soother due to nervousness, or a distractor if someone is trying to focus on something other than what is bothering them, or both? And actually, when people sit around and do this, they goof with their thumbs, you can sit there. That's an adapter. 90% of the time, they're just trying to get rid of that built-up stress and tension, or there's something bothering them. They'll just start squishing their thumbs together or goofing around with them instead of doing this, or sitting there doing that kind of thing. So thumb twiddling is usually there's something bothering them. Some people do it when they're bored, but they're probably bothered because they're bored. They're just sitting there waiting on something. So, but 90% of the time it's an adapter. Adapters are things we use to get rid of that built-up stress or tension. Have you ever noticed those jerky movements reporters make when reporting a story? Well, what do you make of that? It drives me nuts. Actually, I'm the one that trains them how to do that. Not all of them, but some of them. When I do training with them, and I tell them what they want to do. It's called the pop-up, where they go, today we're learning. If you go watch some of the first videos I did on this channel, and I go, I'm Scott Rouse, and I start talking, you'll see me pop up, because it makes you go, what's going on here? It's an attention getter. So you got to be able to do it right. Because if you don't, it starts looking weird if you just keep popping up and doing it. Looks like you got a weird tick. So you have to do it right. Not all of them do it. But when they first start, hey, here's what's happening. It's like, what? So it sort of adds a little tinge of excitement to it, like, oh, something's up. And it sort of keeps your attention when they do that. So pay attention to that. And I'm not saying try it yourself, but try it yourself, but do it right, or you'll look weird. But go watch some of those videos that I did like 3 or 4 years ago, and you'll see that on there. That's back when before the shorts came out, and I was trying to make really short videos and get as much information out as I could. at the time, in the shortest amount of time. And that's what I do to keep attention. So, and that's what I train them to do. So pay attention to that. Do you have any advice on how to see pupil dilation in people's eyes without coming across looking like a weirdo, and even just reading all the body language in general? Yeah, just be cool. It's easy to look at to see the dilation in pupils. You got to pay attention to that, because what people expect when you're talking to them is to look them in the eye. So you're there from the get-go. If you're not talking to them and they're talking to somebody and you start doing that number, yeah, then they're going to know something's up. So it's easiest when you're talking to the person. Or if they're talking to the person right next to you, you can sit there and watch them. You'll see them go up and down, get larger and smaller. And that's fine, So, but to see that stuff, you don't have to get all squished down. Let's see. You don't have to do that. You'll see it. Sometimes they get real pinpointy, depending on what drugs they're on, So watch for that as well. All right. Okay. Where does paying attention to your own body language become an issue? Oh, I see what you're saying. Instead of just being yourself. And you're being interviewed, and instead of just being honest, you come off weird because you're all in your head thinking about your behavior. Yeah, all you're doing there, you're just enhancing your behavior when you go into an interview. Don't turn into somebody else. Don't go in and go, well, hello. It'd be really weird if you sat up real straight and were like, I enjoy this. This is my favorite thing to do in the world, is whatever this job is, and I'm good at it. I really like it. Nobody wants to see that, because that's not you. You can't keep doing that later on because it's fake. So what's usually happening when you're focusing on your body language and your behavior in an interview, you're being you, but you're showing that person you understand the behavior of a business meeting. I want to like to meet with someone, because that's one of the main things they're doing, is seeing how you act during that. Can you act like a professional? Or are you just coming in slank down on the chair and like, what's up? I'll tell you, these kids today, huh? You don't want to, you're showing them you know how to do, as my dad used to call it. So when you sit up straight and you talk normal, don't change your tone of voice. You might, by changing it, don't make it the low rich. You don't go weird on them, but make sure you speak clearly. Do all those things right, but make sure it's you doing it. Don't get up in your head and think, I can't act like somebody else. Don't act like somebody else. Act like you if you're sitting up straight. Act like you if you're wearing a suit or a dress, or something the women wear, or whatever you're supposed to wear. Act like you're supposed to be there and doing that. You're you doing that. This is the way you look when you're doing this. Think about it that way, and it won't get so weird for you. You won't get all up in your head, and you'll know it's okay. But I know where you're coming from. I totally get it. I totally see where you're coming from. You go, I can't do that. I'm not the kind of person. Nobody is really. It's so boring to be that kind of person. But when you go in, you got to sit up straight. You've got to speak clearly, all that, so they know you can communicate. So if they send you to meet with somebody, they don't want to send somebody who doesn't perform the way they'd like them to represent their company and them. So just be yourself, but just sit up straight and do all the things that you know to do. The things that are bothering you, go ahead and do them, but just do them as you. Obviously, you're going to do them as you would do them, but do them as you. Be yourself doing those things. You got to do it, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to live that way for the rest of your life at that job, but there will be times when you have meetings with people where you want to do that, because you want to show you're a professional, and you want to show you're the one in charge, and you know what's going to happen next, or you're the one that's going to say, here's what we're going to do, and that's the way you do it. So keep that in mind. It's okay to feel that way. But there's no need to feel that way, because you don't have to. Just be yourself doing those things. How do I position my body to look confident when sitting in an armless chair? That's a good question. There's a master of this. His name is Nate Bargatze. He's a comedian. One of the funniest guys on the planet. But when this cat sits down, man, it makes you sleepy almost. He's so relaxed. Watch him when he's on Jimmy Fallon. Go Google him and see if you can find those interviews with Jimmy Fallon. those chairs you're sitting in have really low arms. So it's a perfect example of that. He is the most competent and confident sitter I've ever seen in my life. It's perfect. I mean, that's the way he did it. Whether he knows he's doing it or not, I don't think so. But some people do that naturally. Look at John Hamm. Watch that guy sit down. Holy smokes. That guy looks like he's in charge of the damn world when he sits down. You just want to listen to him, no matter what he's doing, no matter where he is, what situation. When that guy sits down, watch the way he sits. Study that guy. The way he sits, he's awesome at taking like the control sit where you're like, yeah, I'm the guy in charge. Oh, that's the guy. But the relaxed, hey, what's going on? Nate Bargatze, can't be beat. All right. If you have any questions about body language, let me know. Bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'll answer them.